Welcome to the Narrative Mindset Podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, uh, when you get time, go back and view previous episodes to get the 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 whatever you want to call it, the gist of the podcast. I appreciate you for tuning in and joining me on this journey. Uh, I am getting better. Like I said, I think I said it on my last episode. This week is just basically giving you a brief look at my life and my family and my uh, some of the different relationships I had and things of that nature. So that you can get a feel for who I am. And the podcast is about my mindset. I'm narrating my mindset in a way that uh, can help viewers possibly look at situations from a different view and have a positive outcome. So enough of that. Uh, Today was it was a pretty good day. I had made a decision last week to stop working 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, because it was like my normal with rideshare, I think is about $300 a day. You're doing 12 hours. And I think it takes you about, I think I hit my 200 mark by about like 1 o'clock. That's after like 9 hours or something like that. Yeah, I know. I'm better off going to work at McDonald's almost. But I decided that I said, well, I want my afternoons off, and I'm kind of sick of doing 12 hours, 5 days a week, and then I get off. I come home. I got to rush to make my lunch and try to squeeze in the podcast and a little TV, and I'm off to bed. It's just, there was just a continuous cycle with no enjoyment in between. So this week I said, you know what? I'm going to change it up a little bit, and I'm going to do 8 hours a day. And then I'll have my afternoons off, and I'll be able to that'll be my enjoyment, because I'll have my afternoons off. So I'll be able to, continue working on my podcast, and I'll have a little bit of time for other things, and then off to bed or whatever. So I'm trying that out this week. And today went pretty good, because I made my mark by I think it was 10 o'clock. So, I mean, that was a pretty good run, uh, because my mark is about $200 a day. So if I do 7 days, that'll be 1,400. It'll usually end up being around about 1,500 a week. So, I mean, that's pretty decent for a regular uh, guy working. I mean, and you got your full afternoons off. So, I mean, that's hard to beat. But enough about that. That was my morning, and then I came home to rush back to get to you fellas, to you listeners, and uh, the next section will be bringing you uh, kind of the early years of, and telling a little bit about my brother. So here we go. I don't really I don't really remember me and my brother having a lot of tension. I mean, we were brothers, so we had the sibling rivalry going on, and that type of thing. I do remember my mother told me, she kept telling me about when I was younger, and he was an only child, and he hit me when I was just a child. I was sitting next to him, and he hit me because he was, it was cute at the time with her. But you have to remember that it was the infancy of a problem later on in life that we'll get to. I might be able to get to it in this episode. If not, it'll be the next episode. But take that little tidbit of information and file it in your mind because we'll come back to it later on. Uh, that particular incident, it really didn't bother me until I got older and I really, really started thinking about things because another little tidbit of information that you'll need to know about me is that uh, I'm curious, but I'm curious to a point to where I I don't I can't stop thinking about something until I can actually see a clear path and and figure it out. So hearing that he hit me as a baby was, at first I looked at it like, oh, whatever, but then when I found out that it was generational, and the bigger picture behind it, then it finally all made sense. And I think that my brother, and I don't think he saw me as competition right away, but I believe he did see me as a uh somebody that he had to share what he considered his mother right away. My mother, she's a parent, so she's that's not really something that she really paid attention to. We were brothers, we fought and argued and all that kind of thing. But there was never a noticeable, uh, I love you different than him type of thing. My mother never did that kind of thing. My dad, uh, my dad was he was a hard kind of person. Not really, he never really got into the mushy, uh, loving and whatever. He was just, just hardcore. If he saw us outside fighting, you know, you know, nothing, you know, and I don't know. I think that was something. That was one of the parts that I think that he did right. Being a dad, and not being, mother trying to get involved in it and all this type of stuff. And dad, he just, let you fight outside, and if you win, you win. If you don't, you don't. But as long as you keep fighting, that's pretty much all that dads want for you to fight back, which is a little bit of another issue that I can address real quick. Uh, real quick. But I want you to think about that as kids, we're raised to, uh, if somebody hits you, you're raised to, you better hit them back. If he hit you, you better hit him back. So it's like you, we're not raised, we're not raised to see things as putting the bigger picture up front and then putting everything else behind it. We're not raised like that. We're just raised to, he hits you, you better hit him back, you better win, you better, this kind of thing. Which, and when you look at it in a realistic point, winning the fight means absolutely nothing. Winning the fight is not going to get you that corporate job. Winning the fight is not going to get you, that dream Tyler Perry job you're trying to get. Winning the fight is not going to get you in the goal. Winning the job is not going to, get you the house, the job, the if it gets you a woman, it's usually the wrong one because she's on a different kind of mindset. She's not on the, hey, he was able to walk away and because he got too much to lose. She's on the, oh, I'm with the 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 hood guy who can, he's winning all the fights, in the neighborhood and he's a tough guy and all this kind of stuff, which would lead to other problems. But, I just wanted to talk about that real quick. Uh no, me and my brother really never talked about uh early feelings. I think that me and my brother were like oil and water, still are. You know, he was a kind of person, all kind of friends or whatever. I'm almost like an unliked person almost because I have such a a a a hard head about growth. I'm not sure if that's a I'm not sure how people feel about that, but it's definitely different. I don't I'm not sure if my brother ever felt guilty about doing that or if he ever even gave it much thought. I'm not really sure. I My assumption would be probably not because I think that his selfishness it kind of supersedes that somewhat. I don't think I ever felt like I had to fight for my mother's attention because, like I said, my mother was always neutral. She never got into, me and my brother fighting and all this other stuff. It was just my mother was always neutral. And as a mother, she was great at it, so I definitely give her credit for just one of the areas I give her credit. That one of the many areas, should I say. I just want to make sure I get that in there. I'm not sure where my curiosity came from. Maybe I'm thinking it came more my mother. I'm not sure if my mother was curious when she was growing up or not, but I think it came more from my dad, I believe. I do think that my brother felt he didn't feel replaced. He um felt like he had to share his 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 mother because she had another child, and I believe that um spiraled later in life and also became generational. I'm really not. mean, I was a child. I don't know if my brother got less attention when I was born or not. I can imagine because you have to, uh, you know, child is born. You have to, as a mother, you have to. There's a certain amount of attention that their child gets. And it takes away from the other child. So I would uh natural, but absolutely, he saw me as a threat to his bond with our mother because he was an only child before I came along. When we got into a fight one time, I think I was hanging with my friends, and I think I was smoking a cigarette, whatever. And he stopped and took asked me to see the cigarette and threw it on the ground and said, don't be smoking cigarettes in his mom's house. Um, Me being the person that I am, um, I just kind of looked at him that was kind of like the first time that I heard it. And for me, being a curious mind and kind of keeping things until these puzzles start getting in. As soon as he said it, I said, okay, here's another part to this puzzle that I'm figuring out. Here's another positive part of that puzzle. So when he said it was like whatever, just kind of took that and added it to the, okay, he hit me when I was a child, meaning he was jealous because somebody else was coming in. Now here's another part of that puzzle. He's saying, okay, they'll be doing this in my mom's house, which is showing a a definite trait of kind of selfishness and no, me and my brother never really talked about that type of thing. It was more, I think he picked up more of a trait of not only being a man, but a trait of holding your feelings, which something I do also. We're just men. So that's just what men do. Men don't, a lot of men don't really talk to each other. So that's just something, something that happens, I guess. I think my brother somewhat resented me, and um, I think he used that he was good at sports and everything, to mask the fact. When I was a problem child at one point, and I'm sure that he felt like, you know, he kind of wished that I wasn't there. And I think that he used him being good at sports and kind of looked at me like, oh, he just keep messing up or whatever, you know, to mask his resentment for, you know, a child naturally needing attention when they messing up, when they're doing bad, when they're getting in trouble, when they get hurt or whatever, you know. But um absolutely, I think that he carried those. Not only did he carry those feelings into adulthood, uh, he those feelings were passed through uh, two of his children I know at least, or at least let me say one of them, because I don't really know uh, the other one. I'm not really sure, but one of them I'm almost positive it was passed into him. I think my brother he helped me out when my father was alive because he felt that as when you have two brothers, one brother can't get in trouble and uh you come home and your father not say nothing. It's like, if your brother or somebody jump on your brother, you have to jump in or you're going to get in trouble uh when you get home. But it was always uh a sibling rivalry as normal. But I will say that after when my father was still alive, but he wasn't in the house, so therefore that more brotherly type of protection wasn't there. I don't think a lot of people really understood or understand my point of view at all. They really, I think that people have a view of me that I'm just always a troublemaker and, I'm mad and jealous of everybody and all this type kind of stuff. But the truth be told, I'm just a thinker, and I know, uh, I look at people from face value, like I look at people before you were who you were. I look at us when we were kids, running in and out the projects. Just because now you're some doctor or lawyer or whatever, you're still the same person. You just changed for the people around you so they can think that you're a new person. Uh I mean, our relationships as far as improving and us being adults, um we're mature. So we both have children, so it's definitely a different dynamic, more mature dynamic, more of I got better things to do. So, it's not something that is carried uh, into adulthood. Uh, Watching the same pattern as adulthood was, uh, at least for me, I experienced when I knew what the pattern was. It was an incident with my nephew, and the incident was I noticed that when my mother uh, she kind of took over because that's her grandson, and I noticed that when there was nobody else that he had to share my mother, who was his grandmother, when there wasn't anybody there that he had to share her attention with, everything was fine. But then when somebody else came into the picture, then there was an issue. So that's when again I took another piece and put it into that puzzle that it was always open and I was always kind of looking at it. So it felt like kind of like history looping back on itself. Uh, it was it was definitely something that they picked up from that was distributed generational. I did try to intervene. I tried to give advice. I was at one point, I was a person who was in place as my nephew's father, but unfortunately, I learned my lesson about getting involved in other people's business because I ended up being the one who ended up getting hurt somewhat, and then now it's like everybody's all right, and I'm looked at the person who I'm looked at like the outsider. So that's something um that I wouldn't recommend doing, and I probably would never do again. I don't. eh, I'm not sure. I think my mom noticed. Uh, was it? Did she notice the same pattern? Honestly, I don't think she noticed it. And now she's kind of too old, so she's she's kind of on the edge of I forget what they call that dementia. She's on the edge of dementia, so she's way too old to really even care. So I believe the conflict was always tied to new people entering uh not the family, but just entering that particular space between them and the person that they figure is a mother figure. And it's kind of like uh the best way I can put it is kind of like dogs. A dog will attack another dog and sometimes another human if you disrupt their their time with a human. I'm not sure if I would call it nature nurture because this was a definite this was a definite generational trait passed down. Yeah, I really felt like uh ex- trying to explain it, but my hope and my dream would be for them to one day listen to this podcast so that they could kind of understand the that when I say something, I actually know what I'm talking about. I'm not just this guy that's uh sitting around mad at everybody else because they got a degree and they're a principal and I'm still working and that's just not the case. I do think that cycles can be broken, but you have to first realize that there is a problem in order to fix it and stop. Um, you have to review your thoughts and say, okay, let me realize what this is in order to change it. I think as far as remarriage, it 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 changes because if you don't, uh, I think sometimes that your previous family can feel a little bit left out. The stepkids got treated differently, definitely differently than my brother's blood kids. It's the stepkids get to stay in the house. The regular kids, you know, they s- they see their dad when he comes to Kalamazoo. Stepkids absolutely feel more secure than the biological ones all the time because the stepkids got the in-house nurturing and the in-house fatherhood and the in-house uh you know dad stepdad showing up at games, the in-house this, the in-house that. The biological kids don't. I see favoritism in most blended families plays out to the left, not the right. I think if you ask me, I think that my nephew struggled more with he struggled more with identity, and that's the way that he was left with when his mother when she got married. Then his dad ended up getting married, so now I think that he felt that he was kind of out there on his own somewhat. And I'm really not sure what his relationship is with his stepfather on his mother's side, because he also has a stepsister also. And I'm not sure what their relationship is. From what, from what I would imagine, I think their relationship is pretty good. I would think. The adults, how do they handle all the layers of kids? I think that one thing that my brother's ex-wife, my nephew's biological mother, and my brother, who is my nephew's biological father, I think one thing that they had in common was that they took that same original selfishness and applied it to everything else, and didn't really put too much energy on anything that wasn't that. So it's kind of like they, got married, and it's all about uh, their marriage and not, you know, the 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 family they had before the marriage. And I think I kind of feel that's the way it is. I don't really see a lot of conflict in it. It's just depends on it just depends on the step parents. Some step parents can be uh great step parents, and when they try to fill in that missing role, others can struggle with it because you're trying to you're trying to form yourself into a missing spot. So you have to really uh, uh, kind of try and understand that whole thing because, and you're also coming into uh, speaking of the missing spot. You're trying to fit into a a a uh, a hurt missing spot. It's not just a missing spot; it's a hurt missing spot. You're trying to fit into a sore that's you're trying to fit into a wide open sore, because that missing spot, there's pain there because that missing spot. They're missing a parent, they're missing uh whatever. So when you come in, it's automatically a natural um anger or a natural pushback. I'm pretty sure that it did feel unfair because I mean it would have to, you know. If you go if all you ever wanted to do was go live with your be with your father and you go live with your father and for whatever reason, because I don't know, I just know what my mother told me, for whatever reason, you know, at one point, you're told, you gotta go back to Kalamazoo. Here's a ticket, you know, you know, good luck. Go live with your grandmother, I'm not even sure he said that, because at least from what I was told, it was like he had bought him a ticket, put him on a plane, and you got to go. So you're on that plane the whole trip, the whole way back to Kalamazoo, no matter what happened, the main thing that's on your mind is why do these other two kids get to stay and I'm your biological child and I don't get to stay. So, it's 1,000,000% unfair. It depends on what stage of life that they're in. It's I'm assuming they can blame themselves. I'm not saying that they always do blame themselves, but sometimes they can, and it can lead to other mental issues. For me, it didn't really, it didn't really affect me too much because that's not my son, so I can't, you know, I can't really step in and do anything about that. So it didn't really hit me too hard, and it didn't bring about any resemblance of me and my brother or whatever we went through. I think it did bring about a question of maybe what did I do? Why, what or maybe what did I do that was so bad that I got put out of my dad's house? And I think that there was a very valid question that he asked himself about the whole situation. And my mother, she was talking to me about it and she was, trying to uh get my brother to understand or uh um she was trying to get my brother to understand and and I don't know, kind of get him to do what he needed to do. But she's a grandmother, not his mom. No, I didn't. I don't get involved in that kind of stuff. Because that's I did get involved in it in another way, but I didn't get involved in it in that particular part of it. Rejection always hurts coming from your own blood as opposed to somebody else because you look at your own blood as they have you feel that the the you feel that your blood has a moral responsibility to you. So when that doesn't play out the way that you feel that it should, then it hurts. I felt some kind of way about my brother putting his son out, but as far as saying anything to him or getting into his business, I don't think that's it. That wasn't my place. And I mean, I got my own two girls, so I try not to get involved in those kind of things. Is favoritism a real poison? In that particular case, yes, favoritism was a real favoritism was a real issue in that particular instance because it created a divide. I think I see my family as that's a really good question. I see my family as survivors of um I think maybe a mix of survivors of regret and uh being able to function above it, uh survivors of selfishness and being able to function above it, survivors of feeling of an unbelonging, disliked, hated feeling, and being able to be so focused on growth that it's like Superman. It doesn't even affect you. I see, my family as being survivors of those things, but I don't see my family being survivors of love struggles or victims of it per se. I think when my dad passed, uh, my brother's focus went to protecting my mother because I mean we're both older, so I don't really need protection. But I think it went to protecting my mother. Uh, but there was still a sense of selfishness there. Um, it didn't really create any tension between us that wasn't already really there. My brother, he's never really been an emotional person, so it's kind of like you know, he's more of the professional. you know, I kind of held it in as much as I could, you know. Uh, didn't really see a change in my brother's personality. He's still, same person he was or whatever. My feeling already there, at least abandonment from a brother's point of view, because I felt like, your brother is, you in a fight, your brother should at least help something, so the my father's passing didn't really change that. Um, I didn't really have to navigate any signals from him. I just, you know, we, uh, we did, what needed to be done. My brother was always uh, a good sports player. He ended up getting a scholarship to Western, and I think from what I was told, he wore soft spikes on AstroTurf, and you're supposed to wear steel spikes on AstroTurf. And I mean, I don't know how he did it, but he went out, got hit, and blew his kneecap out or whatever. Um, he his knee injury was like it was a it was a really big letdown because he thought that football was his. I think it was his way out mentally. His way out of uh the selfishness, the way to mask it completely. But when that went south, now he's got to figure out something else. I don't think he blamed anybody for the injury because who can you blame? You you get a scholarship and you already been in school for 4 years. When you get to college, you should know, at the very least what shoes to wear. The injury, Western Michigan University, thankfully, still let him keep the full ride scholarship. So that was a good thing. He never really talked about being embarrassed or anything like that. Um, but my brother was always good uh, uh, as far as the schoolwork is concerned. So I think he kind of shifted to that and moved on with that part. I was always proud of my brother, regardless, just for getting a scholarship. I wasn't too proud of him for wearing the wrong shoes, but I never really had an interest in sports, so his athletic struggles and their influence on me was zero because I didn't have an interest in sports. I've always been a person who was, I'm gonna get it done no matter what. Nobody's gonna stop me. So the way I approach challenges didn't change. Have or were not influenced by my brother's athletic career. He definitely had support from my mother, and yeah, from my mother. I'm not sure about my dad because I'm not sure where he was. He was there cheesing at the when my brother got drafted, but after that, it was like nothing. Uh, I think he expressed frustration to my mother about it, but never anything uh, to me. My brother handled uh, entering, graduating, and everything. He did a pretty good job because he had a lot of friends. So it was. I don't think there was any fog. I think a crucial decision that impacted his entire life was wearing the wrong shoes. I don't believe he thought through his family implications. I think it was, honestly, don't think that I think the selfishness over kind of supersedes all of that. He may have struggled personally with regret, but nothing outward. When he moved to Arizona, I think that I think it made him feel really good because it was another, it was another avenue that he could, there was another avenue out of a dark place, going from, hurting yourself and getting through school and having to get a regular job. And you got two boys now. So you kind of struggling, doing whatever. And now you can see more light and say, okay, now maybe I can go down this road. I don't think distance made him reflect on his responsibility for his sons because when he got to Arizona, he made two more kids. I think his career affected his personal life because it made him feel more like the person that I feel that he thinks he should be. So I think that's how his career affected his personal life. And I don't, in my own opinion, I don't think that he ever felt, still to this day, any conflict about leaving his sons behind. He broke the pattern of being a woman beater. I don't think he's ever been that. He broke the pattern of alcoholism, and I think those were the only two that I can think of right now that he broke. That, but watching him taking the steps that he took really didn't bother me too much because it didn't affect me or my family. So it was, it was different. Leaving his two sons, I think, left them, kind of feeling almost in a way like they had to fend for themselves. And I don't think he understood the emotional impact on them. But he did try and stay in touch and guide them from a distance as much as he could. But one of his sons reacted negatively to his absence, and the other one was kind of like, kind of held it in. Me personally, I stepped in to, help one of my nephews get an apartment, get a car. He borrowed a little bit of money from me, whatever. So I stepped in kind of as somewhat as his father. Yes, I see the pattern of hurt repeating itself. I don't know what the relationship is between my nephews and their kids, but I definitely see that pattern repeating itself. I think his new marriage, I don't think his responsibility for his sons, I think he kind of, if you ask me, he kind of skipped over it, and it's like he went straight from, I'm a father to I'm moving to Arizona. I got a new family, and now it's my responsibility to take care of my mom. So I think he skipped right over his his responsibility to take care of his sons and just kind of just glazed right over it. I'm really not sure. I'm pretty sure there's somewhat of a rival between them, but also they have step brothers and step sisters, so there's a bit of a bond between all of them. So that may get rid of that that bond of that hurt or whatever, or the rivalry. I believe so, because I believe he did struggle to balance love and discipline because he has two other kids by two different women outside of his marriage, besides his other two biological children. So, there you have it right there.